Let's get more on this story now with Dr. Mads Gilbert. He's a professor of emergency medicine at Norway's University of Tromsø. He's been working and training Gaza junior doctors for the past 20 years. Doctor, it's always good to speak to you on this news hour. As I said before, the statistics continue to just be simply shocking coming out of Gaza. When it comes in particular to population decline, in just 2 years, 10% of the population numbers have dropped. And that's from what we know so far. But what does that population decline mean in the bigger context of Gaza, especially going forward in terms of reconstruction in the Strip?
Yes, Yashini, you're absolutely right. It is a more than shocking number. It's actually closer to 11% decline in the population of Gaza. Now, let's make a comparison. Turkey has around 88 million inhabitants. If you use that number, 11% decline in population, that would mean that Turkey, for the last 2 years, would have lost nothing less than 9.5 million people killed and injured during a similar attack. 9.5 million of your population. So the numbers are incredibly shocking. And it is part of a systematic genocide. And that's why we see this blockade of the 37 legitimate, legal humanitarian organizations, banning them from working in Gaza. The aim of that is to strangulate Gaza. It is to starve pregnant women, newborns, men, children, dispossessed all over Gaza, denying them medical aid, denying them food, denying them also to tell their story to the world. Because what Israel wants to do is, of course, the genocide and kill as many Palestinians as possible or chase them out of Gaza. But they also want to draw the black curtain on what's going on in Gaza. And of course, the NGO representatives on the ground are important sources of true information to what Israel and the United States is really perpetrating in Gaza.
And of course, we have received so much of that true information, as you call it, from the healthcare workers in Gaza, from the foreign nationals who have gone in, as well, of course, from Palestinians themselves who have documented the last 2 years, more than 2 years now, of this war. And part of those statistics had said that Gaza has approximately 2,000 hospital beds for a population that exceeds 2 million. That's something I can't really wrap my head around, considering there are still so many people in need of vital health care and so many who have sustained injuries who still need health now and in the long term. How do they even cope at this point?
That's a very important question. And I think we need to understand, even when we're discussing the 37 banned NGOs, that the main burden of the healthcare work, the surgeries, the care for the newborns, everything that pertains to human health has been carried out by Palestinian healthcare workers, by their doctors, nurses, medical students, nurse students, paramedics, and so on. They have done an incredibly courageous job through these 2 years. But of course, when you are down to 2,000 hospital beds for 2.1 million people, it's close to nothing. And currently, the last number is that only 19 out of Gaza's 36 hospitals remains partially operative. And in many of these hospitals, the medical work is done in a cooperation between international teams and the Palestinian healthcare workers under the leadership of Minister of Health and Dr. Youssef Aborish. So denying all these medical organizations entry is another way of killing the Palestinian people systematically, because they're not only tending to the wounded, they are tending to the diabetics, the cancer patient, and as Ashraf said, the kidney patient who need dialysis and so on. So it is an incredibly systematic attack. And I'd like to just underscore once again, humanitarian aid is non-negotiable. It's not a negotiating card like Israel and the US has turned it into. It is a human basic right to have water, food, and medical support if it is an earthquake, a flooding, or an armed conflict. So we are seeing an unprecedented new international order headed by Trump and Netanyahu, where basic human rights are denied the Palestinian people.
Unprecedented is a word that we've used so many times over the more than 2 years of this war. And, Doctor, one of the other statistics that came out is that the population of Palestinians, this includes Gaza and the occupied West Bank, it's mostly made up of young people. About 64% are under the age of 30. What does that mean in terms of future growth for the Palestinian territories? Is that any sort of positive sign at all? Because you need young people to rebuild going forward, but those young people at the same time have gone through so much and continue to also suffer the generational trauma from their parents, their grandparents, and the generations before. We've been displaced since 1948.
Absolutely. It's a brilliant question, very important. And let's not forget that Israeli occupation forces have killed around 26,000 Palestinian children in Gaza over 2 years. That is an average of a school class per day they have killed. Now, for the demography of the Palestinian people being so young, almost 40% in Gaza being less than 15, of course, this means that the Israelis are facing a demographic bomb, because they will increase in a number. They will marry and get children, despite the fact, and this is another number that we need to repeat, that the life expectancy in Gaza has, over these last 2 years, dropped from 74 years, which was the average life expectancy before the 7th of October, to now around 35 years. That is a historical, horrible reduction in life expectancy. So if you're born in Gaza today, you can expect to live for 35 years. But still, with the demographic tree in Palestine, in occupied Palestine, in West Bank and Gaza, the Palestinian people will continue to grow. And worldwide, there are 16 million Palestinian people, many of them in the diaspora. And I think on this New Year's Eve, we need to remind ourselves and the world that the Palestinian people, they have the right to their homeland. They have the right to live in peace, and they have the right to fight occupation, also with arms, just as we see the Ukrainian people fighting the Russian invasion. And on this New Year's Eve, I'd like to urge everyone in Turkey, everyone worldwide, to increase their active solidarity with the Palestinian people, because our common future is at stake if Israel and the US gets away with these horrible attacks on humanity.
Of course, our common humanity at stake, for sure. Dr. Mads Gilbert, as always, we appreciate your insight. Thank you again for your time.